I'm standing in the beautiful gardens of the Beauclair Palace from the hit 2016 Witcher 3 DLC Blood and Wine, and I'm confused. What do these people actually do? I mean, throughout Witchers 1, 2, 3, and soon 4, NPC names have always been simple and straightforward. The nobles are rich, the poor townsfolk are poor, and whoa, that guy that just ran past us is a messenger, but is that really all? We run past hundreds of these NPCs throughout our playthroughs, but do we know how they actually act in the world itself? Does the amount of money they make reflect in their choices of clothing, dialogue, and residencies? To answer these questions, I created a very simple challenge for myself. Starting at the Beauclair port, I'm going to study the poorest economic strata and make my way up to the richest one at the Beauclair Palace. And if I find an interesting NPC, I'll follow them and study how they were programmed to act. Let's begin. Alright, so we'll start on this intersection and then make our way to either side of the port. Hopefully, we find something interesting there. So when we first walk into the port, something interesting immediately happens. Check this out. These guys are merchants, and we know this because of key environmental clues like the fact they stand in front of the stalls, so there's probably a good reason why they're there. They also wear clean and colorful garments compared to the populace around them, so they must also be relatively affluent, which explains why they can afford their stock. And finally, the biggest clue of them all, they're called merchants, so we can reasonably assume they are. But that's only the surface level stuff. If you stick around, there's a dirty little secret that puts a giant question mark on their status as merchants. When you look at the marketplace yourself, the merchants love to brag about how cheap their prices are.
Have I gone absolutely cuckoo? Selling all dirt cheap? Good folk, have you seen these prices? I must have drunk a crazy potion.
Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like a whole lot of sales speak. I obviously don't believe their claims, so I wait around a bit longer to see if they put their money where their mouth is. And what happened next genuinely shocked me. Oh, wait, hold on. Both of them are leaving. Where you going, buddy? I'll follow this guy. Huh. Interesting. He just went to the another stall? Oh, there. Another one's leaving. They're both in the same stall? Dude, get out of there, man. That's this guy's turf. Okay, there's another one. And he took over this guy's turf again. What is going on? Wait. Do they all do this? I think they do. So that means this isn't a marketplace. This marketplace is a co-op. Okay, so side note for those who don't know, a co-op is an organization managed and owned by a collective. Everyone in a co-op is essentially an owner and an employee, which is why they have no problem switching stalls frequently because every stall is theirs. Okay, so as co-owners of this marketplace, these are by definition not merchants, and instead they should actually be co-op members. See, this is what I love about video games, man. They put so many of these details into places you would normally pass by, and it makes exploration so rewarding. Anyways, with the merchant case open and shut, there was now the case of the poor townsfolk the merchants sold to. Are they as poor as they say they are, or are they also lying devils like these damn co-op employees? To answer this, I moved all the way to the residential areas to see what kind of lives these NPCs led. Hello, ma'am. I see you're watering the garden next to his house here, so I'm assuming you must be the owner. If you don't mind, I guess she does mind. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna inspect your body closely in a very non-creepy way. So just, don't mind me getting up close and personal here. So immediately, the first thing that becomes apparent is their clothing. Every poor person wears the same working clothes. They're dirty, thick, and bear damage from repeated use. And upon closer inspection, their clothes are noticeably less vibrant than the merchants, and by extension, all of the richer economic classes. We'll get to them in a bit. So keep this in mind because their clothes would be very important later on in the video. For the poor townsfolk, this type of clothing makes sense because of the nature of their work. And wouldn't you know it, right next to the house is said work. Okay, so from what I can tell, there's this wheelbarrow and a couple of broken barrels in the shed. And judging by the wear and tear in this wheelbarrow, this must be their main way of transporting these barrels. If we make our way to the side of the house, we also find the tools they use to make said barrels. So clearly, their business has to be barrel focused. But now I'm wondering, do they only sell barrels, or are they also putting stuff inside the barrels before selling them? Well, that's a great question, Past Terry. If we move our attention to this side of the house, what else do we find but a conveniently placed vineyard? And given the fact Beauclair's biggest produce is wine, this lady must therefore be the owner of this vineyard and is a wine producer slash seller. Right? But wait a minute. What's this? Take a look back at the size of this vineyard. Now, I'm no wine sommelier, but clearly this is too much wine for this handful of barrels to accommodate. Furthermore, even if they had enough barrels, they have no place to store the wine. It can't be in these barrels sitting in the sun because wine must be fermented in cool, stable environments. They also clearly do not have the extra real estate to accommodate for the required barrels anyways. So judging by these factors, they're clearly not rich enough to afford the assets needed to be a wine producer. So unfortunately, this lady is most likely just an employee. Moving on to the other side of the cove, we find this little dye manufactorum in the middle of the residential area, and it seems they have no problem spilling their chemicals into the water. So this is a realistic manufacturing company. The poor townsfolk here are self-explanatory. Dyed shirts, occasionally stretching their back from bending over too much, generally negative outlook on life.
Life in Beauclair can be quite dear. Death, though, that's always free. No one gives a hoot about us poor folk.
Yep, they're definitely factory workers. This guy, though, isn't as straightforward. He claims he has the best prices on this side of the Yaruga. But how true is this claim really?
My prices are the best this side of the Yaruga.
Okay, so let's see what you got. 1,114 crowns for one jar of dye? Dude, that's like 50 bread for a jar. What a ripoff. Oh yeah, no, that confirms it. Yeah, his name tag is in fact wrong because his real occupation is actually an Instagram course seller. You lying piece of shit! Moving past that, beside them is this little rundown house with an old man inside, allegedly. It's hard to tell anything from whatever he's doing down there, but he's clearly self-sufficient judging by the fishing equipment on the wall and his shelf of medicines and medical notes for possible treatments. If we account for how bad his living situation is and how neglected he is by society, he's most likely a war veteran, if we use America as a reference. But that should wrap it up for the docks, thank God. So I think it's about time we head to the lower class areas now. You see, I think it's at this point that Beauclair truly reveals herself. As soon as you walk in, you notice the streets are considerably cleaner and they're all paved. As a result, the color of the houses themselves also stick out much more. However, they're clearly worn down because the populace can't afford to repair them often. So, from what I can tell, we've definitely moved up Beauclair's social ladder, even just a little bit. If you make your way up towards the wine market, this is the point where we start encountering more sophisticated folks like this pimp walking around with his workers, this poor townsman who is shockingly literate, our first regular townsfolk, and even a handful of nobles. Let's start with this guy. Judging by his name, he should be a higher social class than the average poor townsman. If we take a look, he is in cleaner clothing which doesn't seem to have much wear and tear. And this is what I was talking about, the color of his clothes are much more vibrant. If we compare him to this merchant over here, their difference in social status couldn't be more obvious. The merchant's clothes are more simplistic in design and their color palette favors darker, earthy colors. This makes sense because they have to sit out here all day and sell their wares, so they're naturally going to get dirty and would prefer to hide that from customers. We can confirm this by the dirt on the side of his shirt and this little sweat mark on the back of his neck. On the other hand, the regular townsman is spotless and his hat is this goofy muffin design that would be impractical for labor work. Clearly, this man is comfortable. He does not make his money through hard labor. Now, if we move our attention to the poor literate townsman, we have someone who's clearly on their way to becoming a regular townsman. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the only poor townsman that reads in his spare time. Things become more interesting, however, if we follow him inside his house. Excuse me. Oh, this is nice. They have so much more space here. Wow. I'm gonna tell you all this right now. That man right there is getting paid. And indeed he is. Upon closer inspection, they have this set of shelves entirely dedicated to seasonings and food storage, which they could afford. And coming around the corner are multiple children's toys like this stuffed rabbit, jump ropes, and a toy horse. which again, they could afford. But the most interesting part in the entire house is in this corner, which contains the very books this guy reads. I actually calculated it, and if we assume The Witcher 3 is set in medieval times before the printing press, and the average price of each book costs the same as a Bible in 13th century Europe, in this shelf alone then would be 109 people's salaries in one corner. One thing is clear. This guy may be a peasant, but he is working his ass off to be like the regular townsman. What's not as clear, however, is his job. So if I find something in my background research, I'll put it up on screen right now. Okay, so this guy's job will have to remain a secret for now. Moving along, roaming around a couple more areas brought me to some thugs nearby, clearly up to some nefarious schemes.
You're pushing it, friend.
Oh yeah? What are you gonna do about it?
You're pushing it, friend. You're pushing it, friend.
Buddy, I'm still pushing it. You're not gonna do shit. I also spotted these NPC workers roaming around nearby, and they looked like regular townsmen to me, so I wasn't quite sure about what made them special. Until I saw this. Oh. Wow. The worker actually picked up the box. Now, does he complete dropping it off? Damn, he's tweaking out. Whoa, whoa, buddy. He is carrying it. He's struggling, though. I don't know. I want to step in, but I kind of just want to see how far he gets. Yes, he does. As we near the upper class section, we find two of my favorite NPCs in all of Beauclair. These ladies. Technically speaking, they're the same entity since they both behave the same way, but we'll separate them because their social classes are very important context clues. So what exactly do they do? You see, with most NPCs, they tend to stare at you when you walk by, and sometimes if you stare at them for long enough, they'll drop whatever they're doing and bugger off elsewhere. Not with these ladies. No matter how close you get to them, they will not give you even a smidgen of their attention. Even if you bump into them, they shrug it off all nonchalant like Marlin and lean back like nothing happened. To them, you might as well not exist. So what is this thing that put them in this hypnotic state? Try this. If you place yourself right next to these ladies, get as close as you can without disturbing them, and turn your camera towards the direction of their eyes, you see the Beauclair Palace. See, that revelation was so crazy, I had to replay it 3 times. Take it how you will, but given the fact this is a poor townswoman spending her afternoons gazing at this silhouette of the castle, one must imagine what this figure represents to her. Does she wonder what it's like to be one of the noblewomen walking its great halls? Does she imagine how much better life would be if she had the same things as these nobles? What must it be like to never go hungry again? To be somebody, to matter for once in her life? The beauty of it all to me is the fact that this thought process transcends social classes. If we walk a minute uphill, we find a regular townswoman doing the same thing. Despite being physically and economically closer to the castle, she still gazes at it with the same wonder as the poor townswoman. Despite having more, she still yearns. Keep them in mind because they're going to be very important when we reach the castle. Okay, that should wrap it up for the lower classes. I think it's about time we made our way inside the walls. Now, the Beauclair walls are an interesting world-building tool in CD Projekt Red's toolset because of its representation in the context of Toussaint's social structure. Aside from its practicality as a defensive barrier in conflicts, these city walls are a literal barrier that separates the poor from the rich. Furthermore, the wall and the rich areas behind it sit at a higher elevation than the rest of Beauclair. So in every sense of the phrase, the rich tell the poor, "We are above you." And they make sure we don't forget this once we go inside the walls. As soon as we walk in, it immediately feels like we've entered a completely different world. The streets are not only paved and clean, they're also made of this colored brick material as if to decorate the streets themselves. And if you look closer, you'll notice the first instance of sidewalks just like this, which are meant for leisurely use and does not exist in the poor areas. Now, if you look up, you'll notice the houses are not only bigger, but also in better shape. No doubt because its residents can actually afford to repair them for once. And finally, the last detail I wanted you to notice is something that's been hiding in plain sight the entire time. Come here, look at this. You see that, right? Here, let me adjust your glasses. Damn, you are one blind ass motherfucker. If you still can't see it, don't worry, it's simple. There are no poor people. Matter of fact, the upper class areas have the highest density of regular townsfolk in the entirety of Beauclair. And this is also the point where nobles start appearing more frequently. If we want to find poor people, we'd have to walk all the way to this corner of the inner city where the greatest landmark nearby is a graveyard, emphasizing how close poor people are to death versus the rich who live far away from any reminders of their mortality. To illustrate this inequality even more, let's look at one of the lakeside mansions just around the corner. Dude, it's not even close. This front foyer alone costs more than the poor people's houses. Who even needs this much weaponry? Oh my god, the walls, the walls. This is easily multiple craftsmen needed to put them together. The rugs, the tiles, the master bedroom. I mean, this is the kids' bedroom? Apart from their incomparable amounts of wealth, there really isn't much interesting about the upper class. I mean, what's there to know? They spend their days leisurely walking around the place without a care in the world. They wear the best clothes, live in the best houses, eat and drink copious amounts of delicacies on a daily basis, and they have all the freedom in the world to choose what they do with their time. What's new? Some of them choose to spend their time in a drunken stupor, and others make the most of their days indulging in the finer things in life. All the while, the poor people struggle to scrape together just enough to survive another day. Maybe the reason why we don't pay attention to these details while playing the game is because it's something that we always see. Maybe deep down, we see the inequalities that we deal with on a daily basis in the very NPCs we pass by, and we're just grateful we're not the ones being ignored for once. Maybe in the push for more realism, we find the very economic injustices we try to escape by playing video games, and this is just a constant reminder that we can never truly escape our problems in real life, and the only way out is by fighting it head on. But I don't know. I'm just playing video games. I'm just playing video games. But that's just a theory! A game theory! Wrapping up our time in the upper class section, we finally get to the richest of them all. The Beauclair Palace. In this economic strata lies its one and only member, the current ruler of Toussaint, Anna Henrietta. She's the current Duchessa of Beauclair and the sole owner of this entire estate. But how rich is she exactly? Well, it's hard to put a monetary value on her wealth because this castle doesn't have a giant price tag on it, nor is it possible to account for any outside investment she may have, so we'll have to settle for using environmental context clues instead. If we use the relative areas of the poor and rich houses on the map, compared to the other two strata, Anna's estate has 730 times the cross-sectional area of the average upper-class house, and this figure only jumps further to 1,014 times for average poor houses. Even ignoring the height of the house, one thing is for sure, Anna is balling the f out. Also consider that within her entire estate is, number one, a labyrinth of paved pathways extending from the castle front all the way to the palace gardens, which implies the employment of skilled laborers like these guys to build it and messengers like that guy from the intro to facilitate communications. Number two, the finest architectural structures money can buy, which implies hiring master architects like Peter Pharamond. Number three, an entourage of the most powerful nobles at her beck and call, which she also feeds and entertains every day, so she must also have multiple cooks and entertainers like this guy walking around with her personal leopard on retainer. And last but not least, number four, all 86 of the guardsmen in the castle, which extends to every guardsman in Beauclair, which extends even further to all of the knights errant throughout Toussaint. But despite all this wealth, where is Anna throughout all of this? Standing right here, unmoving, all day, every day. I checked. She doesn't have any routines like the other NPCs. She doesn't move anywhere else to sleep. She doesn't even move inside her gazebo. The only times we see her move is when the story calls for her involvement. Now, I understand having Anna stand at the same spot is the most optimal for the player, but I can't help but find it poetic how the most powerful character in all of Toussaint isn't even a person until the story calls for it. We never get to see her enjoy the excess of her estate. She doesn't even get a bed to sleep on. That's right, the developers didn't even bother fleshing out the inside of the palace, so this castle that's loomed over us this whole video has nothing in it. The walls are empty. Wait, hold on. That goes kind of crazy, doesn't it? The walls are empty. Wait, that's kind of goes crazy. That goes kind of crazy. Hold on, let me write that down. Now, remember the two ladies I talked about earlier? If we move forward with this thought process, the walls are empty, it completely recontextualizes everything that they stand for. It means that the very castle whose silhouette they religiously admire every single day is nothing but a facade. Behind the towering marble pillars, the exotic animals, the endless flow of food and wine, all of these things represent the mere idea of wealth. It's the same reason why all of these influencers in our feeds show off the things they have, because the idea of something is more real than the thing itself. In reality, the nobles who are in the position the two ladies desire don't even derive joy from the things they have. Rather, they spend their days lounging about in the palace grounds, playing, dancing, eating, drinking. We think these nobles have material wealth in excess, but the true luxury the nobles have over every other social class is the ability to do nothing. So if you see yourself in these two ladies, imagining all the things you would do once you have all the things you want, I want to remind you of something. Do not get lost in the pursuit of the idea of your goal. Rather, learn to appreciate the small moments of peace and quiet during the process, because sooner or later, they will disappear and you will find yourself sorely missing the times where you could just do nothing. So to answer the question, what do the Witcher 3's NPCs actually do in Beauclair? They're all in the pursuit of the same thing. To do nothing. I'm Dolan Primo. Thanks for watching.